Welcome to the Daily Brain.
Hello.
Today, we're really zooming in. Just one specific word. It sounds kind of cool, actually. SERAC.
SERAC. Right. Heard it before. Definitely has that mountain vibe.
Totally. So the mission is to use only these sources to get a handle on it, what it means, where the word came from, and why it matters.
Okay. A word deep dive. I like it. It's a word that definitely carries weight in the mountain world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Literally and, well, figuratively, too.
That's a good way to put it. And yeah, looking through this stuff, it's clearly more than just jargon.
Definitely.
So let's jump in. Basics first. What do the dictionaries and the climbing guides here actually say a SERAC is?
Okay, so pulling from these, the core definition describes it as like a pinnacle or maybe a sharp ridge or just a big block or column of glacial ice.
A block of ice.
Yeah, and specifically, you find them in amongst the crevasses on a glacier, the broken up bits.
Ah, okay. So it's not just any ice chunk. It's a feature within that fractured glacier landscape.
Precisely, and the sources, they really make a point about size.
How big are we talking?
Often large. The phrase house-sized comes up a lot. Or even bigger.
House-sized, wow. Okay, picturing a house made of ice sticking out of a glacier, that gives you some serious scale. And where exactly on a glacier do these huge things tend to pop up?
The material points to a couple of main spots. Firstly, within an icefall.
An icefall. Makes sense. Where the glacier flows steeply and just gets shattered, right?
Exactly. Heavily fractured, broken up. That's one place. And also on ice faces. Specifically, along the lower edge of what they call a hanging glacier.
A hanging glacier. Sort of like it's perched up on a cliff face.
Yeah, that's the idea. So basically, areas where the glacier is under a lot of stress and movement.
Okay, that gives us the technical picture of what it is, where it is.
Right. But here's where, looking at the sources, it gets really, well, kind of strange, actually. Yeah, but the original word SERAC in Swiss French, It didn't mean ice.
No, what did it mean?
It meant a kind of white cheese.
Wait. Keys? You're telling me these massive, dangerous, house-sized ice towers are named after cheese?
That's what the linguistic sources say. It's wild, isn't it?
That is wild.
They trace it back even further. Through medieval Latin seracium, which apparently meant whey.
Whey, like Little Miss Muffet, curds and whey.
Exactly, that liquidy stuff from cheese making.
Yeah.
And that comes from the Latin serum, also meaning whey.
So the word's journey is whey. To a specific cheese, to a giant, unstable block of ice. That's quite a leap.
It is. And the connection, the sources explain, is purely about looks.
Looks.
Apparently, these ice formations just looked like this particular kind of white cheese.
I'm trying to picture the person who first made that connection, standing in the Alps, looking at this maybe terrifying ice structure and thinking, you know what that reminds me of? Cheese.
It definitely shows a different way of looking at things back then, doesn't it? Less about the danger, maybe more about the appearance. The source talks about a period of climate cooling, a sort of little ice age effect.
Right, I've heard of that.
And it meant glaciers were actually growing, advancing down valleys.
Getting bigger, moving further down.
Exactly. Which wasn't just a visual change. It had real impacts, swallowing up pastures, threatening villages, making traditional mountain passes harder or impossible to cross.
So not exactly a welcome change for the people living there.
Not at all. And this seems to have fed into a really negative perception of mountains during that time.
Negative how? Just inconvenient or?
More than that, actually. The source mentions mountains sometimes being called cursed mountains.
Cursed? Seriously?
Yeah. It quotes figures like de Saussure, the famous naturalist, hearing locals refer to Mont Blanc and the surrounding peaks as essentially cursed places, maybe believing the permanent snows were some kind of, divine punishment.
Wow. That's a world away from how we often view them today. Majestic, inspiring.
Totally. It shows how the sheer power and unpredictability, especially with those advancing glaciers, really shaped how people felt about them, their folklore, even their religious ideas.
So SERACs weren't just a problem for later climbers. They were literally blocking paths, impacting travel and trade centuries earlier. That connection is fascinating, the physical thing being a known problem long before the word gets standardized.
It really is. It kind of suggests the need to name and define something like a SERAC came directly from its real-world impact, People needed a way to talk about this specific danger.
Which brings us squarely to that danger. It's a point hammered home in pretty much all the sources, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The consistent theme is SERACs are incredibly unstable. That's the key word. Unstable.
Not like, say, a stable cliff face. These things can just go.
Exactly. They can collapse suddenly, completely without warning. That unpredictability is what makes them so hazardous.
No warning at all. That sounds terrifying if you're anywhere nearby.
It is. The sources are very clear. A SERAC collapse is a major, major hazard. The ice falling, remember house-sized blocks, can cause catastrophic injury or death.
And the material doesn't just say they're dangerous. It lists specific awful examples. Reading through them, it really makes it concrete.
It does. Makes the risk very real. Let's see the sources mention. Okay, a climber killed by one on a Japanese Everest expedition back in 69 or 70.
These aren't always small incidents affecting one or two people, right?
No, far from it. There was a SERAC fall on Lennon Peak in 1990. It triggered a huge avalanche. 43 people died.
23. From one SERAC triggering an avalanche? That's staggering, the scale of it.
It shows the immense destructive potential, doesn't it? And there are other major disasters mentioned.
Like on K2.
Yeah, the 2008 K2 disaster. The sources link collapsing SERACs directly to at least 8 of the 11 deaths that day.
K2 has such a fearsome reputation, and it sounds like SERACs are a big part of why.
A huge part. Then there's the 2014 Everest ice avalanche. Killed 16 Sherpas in the Khumbu icefall, caused by a large SERAC breaking off.
In the Khumbu icefall, which climbers have to go through repeatedly.
Exactly, a known hazard zone defined by SERAC dangers. And even more recently, April 2023, back in the Khumbu icefall on Everest, another SERAC collapse killed 3 Sherpas.
It's just relentless,
Yep.
a constant, unpredictable threat across different mountains, different years. So, given how dangerous they are, how does the word SERAC actually get used, within the climbing community, and how does it connect to safety?
Well, it's kind of got two sides to it, based on these sources. On one hand, yes, SERAC is definitely part of the climber's vocabulary. The jargon.
The cool-sounding words.
Sort of. One source mentions it popping up in discussions about the coolest mountaineering words. Describes it as having an ominous, mysterious side.
Ominous and mysterious. I can see that. There's a weight to it, knowing the danger.
Exactly. It fits in with a whole set of specialized terms climbers use, often borrowed from French or German, as the sources note. They list others like arete, bergschwund, crevasse, couloir, moraine.
Right. All those specific terms for features. Helps describe the terrain precisely.
Essential for communication, especially about hazard.
Why should someone care about this word if they're not planning on tackling K2?
That's the key question, isn't it? Well, first off, just knowing what a SERAC is helps you understand stuff you might read or watch.
Like documentaries or news reports?
Exactly, or adventure books. When they talk about SERACs or ice falls, you now have a clearer picture of what they mean, the scale, the potential danger involved. It unlocks a layer of understanding about these environments.
Gives you the vocabulary.
Right. And more broadly, learning about inherently dangerous features like this, it really drives home the power of nature, doesn't it? And the risks.
Yeah. You definitely get a sense of that from the accident list.
It underlines why knowledge, preparation, respect, why all that is so crucial when you're in challenging environments, even ones that look peaceful or static, like a glacier can seem.
And that weird history part, the cheese.
Yeah, the cheese. Exploring that history, how the word evolved, how the physical SERACs impacted travel way back in the 17th century, it gives you a glimpse into how our whole relationship with mountains has changed over time.
From cursed mountains blocked by ice to places of recreation and science.
Exactly. It shows these physical features weren't just passive scenery. They actively shaped human history, movement, culture, even how we named things.
So yeah, diving into just this one word, SERAC, gives us way more than a definition. It touches on history, language, danger, science, human perception.
It's like a little window onto a much bigger landscape of ideas. The quirky history, the very real danger, the specialized language.
That contrast is definitely what stands out.
The cheese versus the killer ice block.
Yeah. How can something named ultimately after whey, after this humble dairy product, become one of the most feared things on the highest mountains? That makes you think, doesn't it? About names and reality and the hidden stories behind words.
It does. Or maybe just how learning these specific terms, like SERAC, gives us a sharper lens to appreciate both the beauty and the hidden dangers lurking in a place like a glacier, which might look serene, but is actually full of these complex, powerful forces.